Hello, welcome to Let's Learn Japanese, course series for the self-study of Japanese from basics and beginnings up to intermediate and hopefully advanced. I'm Nuke Marine. Now, before we get into it, and let me point out the elephant in the room. So this is a clickbait title. Got it. However, there is quite a bit of truth behind it. And I just want to say, before I talk about the things that are leading up to that, and that'll be happening in the first part of the video, the main purpose of the video is what you see above me, which is the kind of a review of the Hajimete no Nihongo Noryoku Shiken N1 Tango Sanzen, 3,000 essential vocabulary for the JLPT N1. All right, now to get to that, so again, that's going to be the main purpose of the video, but a lot of the video is going to be talking about this clickbait of a title. Okay, so let's begin. Let's go back a few years. All right, I started off on putting courses on Memrise. At that time, then I collected the courses into something I called the Suggested Guide for Japanese Literacy. That became a popular thread on Memrise. Someone suggested, hey, why don't you, he wanted to show us support financially, so he said, why don't you set up a Patreon? So I did, and as a Patreon happened, and let me just show you that real quick. All right, sorry. So as the Patreon was happening, some people were throwing some support there, and it did grow, not to this level, it didn't grow to that level just yet, but it was growing. So what I did was I wanted to use those funds for some reason or another. So the first thing I did was, since I was doing YouTube videos by that time, I hired some tutors using italki, and I was just going to do some tutoring sessions from them. So they were kind of teaching me, really they were supposed to like correct my pronunciations while I was doing reviews in Japanese. But sometimes it was also conversations as well. All right, so nothing to write home about. I think 4chan had a laugh or two at a couple of the videos where I'm being a bit more excited in how I was reading the text than you would expect. All right, fine. So let's go to full screen and talk about this now. All right, so okay, so that's going to say how I started to use the funds from the Patreon in order to basically help make some products for the Suggested Guide for Japanese Literacy, which become the Let's Learn Japanese. All right, also around a little bit after that, met up with Matt, and a few months after meeting up with Matt and his Matt vs. Japan channel, then there was a group discussion on his Discord, and a gentleman named Calculus Ace mentioned about this particular brand of books, what we'll abbreviate as Tango the Tango series, Tango N5, Tango N4. Now he mentioned that he did Tango N5, Tango N4, typed them up, made Anki decks, and he passed the JLPT N5 and N4 with no problem. Like didn't even sweat it. So that got us in, especially got me interested. So that's when we made the Anki decks, and then made the rule like, hey, we'll share this Anki decks with you, and it shows that they've got ownership of the book, some modest proof of ownership. Cool. And that's been happening for the last couple years, 2 or 3 years, whatnot. I think I've like given out like over 1,000, the links to over 1,000 people. I mean, I haven't counted the numbers in a long time, but it's definitely, if it's not there, it's approaching it. So it's proven very popular. People have gotten the books in order to get the Anki decks. Cool. So this is all coming to a point. In fact, let me just show you. So yeah, so here are the three. So here are the three main books. So it's mainly, and I've already done reviews of them for the N5, the N4, and the N3. Pretty decent Anki decks as well. So anyway, good. A lot of thanks goes to Calculus Ace for doing that. Now, let me just say also what I started using with the Patreon was showing support for other members. So I'll show that real quick. So this is and let me go and make sure I got this in the right position. Okay, cool. All right, so these are the memberships of my Patreon that I do. So there's a Choden, I'll explain the $100 a month soon enough. Matt vs. Japan, that's his original channel. Dogen's channel. Fabrice is the guy who developed or set up the kanji.kohi website for studying of kanji. And so I still show them support because that's really what helped me in my beginning studies. Is that even though the message, even though the boards have been taken down, but I still support the website. Refo, that's again the rename of Matt's website, FGD, and I'll explain him a little bit later. All right, so these are what I started to do is using Patreon to show support for other members. These and sometimes these change. I add somebody or take them away over time. But usually when I show financial support for someone, I like going through Patreon for those purposes because it feels like, hey, I'm getting support from other people through Patreon, then I basically pass it on to other people. All right, so this is like very chaotic. I apologize. What I did on my Discord was I put out the call like, hey, can someone help me type up particular books like the Shinkansen Master N4 and 5, and a gentleman named FGD. He had said, yeah, he'll do that. So he was the one that the little $1 was at. So what I was doing is like a certain number of sentences, he'd get a certain amount of payment. Cool. So he typed up all of the N4. It took a while. He was doing the N3. He kind of flaked out, but I was paying in part. So I paid him for the part that he did, but he didn't finish up the book in the format that the format he was typing it up I liked, but he didn't finish it, so I couldn't really have the N3 deck made available for people in the format that I liked. But it's still available for people who own like the Shinkansen N4, the Shinkansen N3 grammar books. Yeah, so if you own those, I can send you a link to the decks, that sort of thing. There's another gentleman, and let's see, can I show him? Yeah, I can't really show you that, but another gentleman was Yasu. Now Yasu is a instructor on italki, and I've also I did a live stream with him as doing Japanese instruction for him correcting my pronunciation. But what I did privately is he was the voice who recorded all the take him sentences so he was a native Japanese recording. So if you've ever had decks shared about the take him decks that I share with you, if there's audio on it of the sentences, it's usually he's the voice behind it. So yeah, I forgot how much it was, but it was about 6 to 8 sessions, and about $10 to $20 a session just to try to get all the recordings done. So it took a lot of time. But again, I thought that worked. That was a good idea behind using Patreon funds in order to finance italki efforts. So hey, here's a good way of hiring natives if we need to use native level audio for whatever product is being made, if necessary. It's a lot of effort, maybe minimal returns considering now the resources are available, outside of that. All right, now let's just say what's happening here. So let's bring up Choden. What happened was Choden had messaged me and saying, hey, it sounded like I was going to be paying out for some other products, and especially like the first 4 level, the N5 to N2 levels of the Tango decks. And so he said, what about the N1 books, as that wasn't typed up? So he offered, so I basically commissioned him to type up the books. So let me show you his channel real quick. All right. He did finish that. So that was in 2019, May of 2019. He did finish the books he finished typing up the sentences in September of 2019. Actually, let me just stop that real quick. Man, I have got this all sorts of messed up. But yeah, he had typed them up he finished them up in September 2019. I formatted I sort of kind of formatted the spreadsheet. I was actually very lazy about it, considering I wasn't putting as much effort to refine the deck as it would be. But he did his part. All right, they're all typed up, and I could just use what he had made. I can made a functional N1 deck. And again, what I said was, okay, for every, I think it was like $20 for every 40 sentences. So total, because there was like, I forgot how many sentences were, but it came out to about $1,100. So that was in fact, let me stop here. So yeah, it came up to about $1,100 if you did the total. So that was the commission. All right, and so that started. Now, what I was said is when we started this, hey, I will pay that via Patreon. He took a while to set up his Patreon. Part of my idea was like, hey, let me advertise this, and then I'll say, oh wow, I'm paying out this much money, and I'll go on the Patreon and say, hey, I'm paying this out and supporting him $100 a month because he did this, you know, and then say, oh, by the way, the N1 deck is available. That was the idea. Now I never got around to doing that, mainly because I was more interested in starting doing a lot more of the Let's Reads. I was doing a lot of Let's Reads. In fact, if you look on my, let's go back to the scene again. Yeah, if you look on my Patreon, you'll notice most of my submissions are Let's Reads. And that's where I kind of pulled, remember I kind of pulled back. I was getting kind of a little, maybe going in the wrong direction. I thought like, oh, because people are becoming patrons, I need to make stuff for them, like rewards monthly and all that stuff. And it started becoming a bit, maybe too stuff like it. Instead of worrying about learning Japanese or supporting the Japanese learning community, which was the main thing that started this whole thing, I was getting more into like making stuff for people. So a few months back, I did make the call to pull back and not worry about making stuff monthly for, you know, or doing live Q&As or weekly whatever. It was just very simple. It was like, okay, if you're a member of the Patreon, you can join you can then talk in any of you can type in any of the channels on the Discord. But the Discord's still open to everyone. All the channels are still open to everyone. Just to, you know, if someone wants to chat that's not a member, they're limited to one channel for sending a message, but everyone can read messages. So everything's available there. Most of the stuff on the Patreon is available. I mean, all I'm doing is this essentially accounting my when I finish a Let's Read series, for the most part. That's pretty much what I'm doing, although this video will go up on the Patreon as well. But it's not, patrons aren't paying for it in that it's not a reward only for the patrons. The idea is like the people on the Patreon are supporting what I'm doing for everyone, if that makes more sense. Hopefully that makes a lot more sense. So it's not about creating a gated community. It's like, all right, they like what I'm doing for everyone, so they want to show support of what I'm doing to help everyone. And in a way, that feels a bit more, it's a lot more freeing. Like I'm doing more stuff because of that. And hopefully everyone gets a more rewarding, something rewarding from that as well. So yeah, that's why I'm why this sounds kind of like a weird chain of events. Is that, again, it all kind of goes down to, again, just to say, hey, thanks to Choden. All right, now on Discord, he's Shota Yohei. I don't know if he changes his name based on the channels. That was the channel name. On here, he goes by Choden. And really, by the time this video plays on July the 1st, that was going to be the last payment to him. You know, that would be the 11th payment, $1,100. But now that I'm looking like, because of taxes that Patreon take, or the amount that Patreon takes as the overhead plus probably taxes, he's getting I probably, now that I'm looking out, I'll probably pay him one more month. So like, you know, so maybe I'll end it on August 1st instead of July the 1st. Either way. But anyway, this is sort of a thank you to Choden. And yeah, he was the one I paid. Let's go back to the, all right, so let's go back. He's the guy I paid $1,100 for an Anki deck. Technically, it was really for the spreadsheet of him typing up a book that publishers had probably already had a spreadsheet on. In fact, before I had actually paid him, I had said, like, I was trying to think I was going to write to the publishers real quick, because I had already been in discussion with them. Because you know, I've been sending them links to the videos I was doing, reviewing their books, and showing the links that I was talking about, sharing the Anki deck with people who, you know, purchased their books, sort of thing. So they were aware of what I was doing. I don't know if they cared or not. They were at least aware of it, or I was trying to make them aware of it. And I thought, hey, if I already sent these publishers like the spreadsheets of the first 4 books, I'd say, hey, look, I've already got the spreadsheets. Could you share me a spreadsheet of the N1 book, and then I'm just going to make it an Anki deck. I'm not going to share the spreadsheet, just utilize it to make this functional deck that people who buy your books because they want this Anki deck, if that makes sense. However, turns out, you know what? I utilized Patreon funds and rewarded someone who is in the community who put in the effort, similar to what Calculus Ace did, put in the effort of typing up all these sentences into a functional spreadsheet. I take the spreadsheet, put it into a functional format of an Anki deck that then can be shared to other people who purchase this particular set of books from Ask Publishing. And I think that works out quite well. So, and I'll be honest, by the way, I'll say this. I know I'm flipping between full screen and this. I think I should just keep it like this because I've been doing these Let's Reads for so long now. I'm so used to being in the little small square here, you know, instead of this big screen everywhere. And then plus also I can like refer to something. It actually is on screen because I can see it's on screen. You know, I haven't like, you know, flipped between something, because if I forget to switch back, I'm talking about an item on screen and I'm messing on screen, but again, the viewers doesn't see it. All right, all that said, let's now get back into it. All right, so let's talk about it. N1, and partially also because I never did the review of it, but N2 as well. The reason why I didn't really do the reviews, I never did the decks. I have the Anki decks, but I never studied the Anki decks. I've mainly been doing Let's Reads for the most part, and they keep up with my Anki reviews. Although now I'm probably going to get back into it, and I might actually go and start finishing these as well. You know, on top of doing Anki decks, you know, I also want to be doing the sentence finding that I'm doing via the Let's Read resources. All right, so let's talk about it. So let's N1. If you've done the N4, the N3, there's nothing new here. The book is a little thicker than the others because there's, you know, again, 3,000 words as opposed to 1,000. And this is not the sentences. These are the number of vocabulary words. Okay, this is not false advertising. There are 3,000 words in this book. All right. Now, sentence-wise, and again, this is kind of this is not exactly. All right. It says it goes right here to 1852, but that's entries. That's not sentences, because some entries have 2 or more sentences. Total's coming out to about, I want to say, 2,200 sentences. Yeah, so roughly 2,200 sentences in this book, and an additional 800 vocabulary, which brings again the total to 3,000. Okay, I'm sorry, 1,850 entries. Okay, so those are the vocabulary words, plus an additional 1,200 words, total of 3,000 words. But of the 1,800 entries, there's 2,200 example sentences there. All right, now let's just show you. So if you have access, I do recommend, this is if you get the digital format, you kind of basically get in this PDF file. And the PDF file is kind of useful because you can kind of sort of highlight over Japanese words. So if you ever want to do like copy paste, it's a lot easier if you're using a digital book than having to just type it out from the book itself if you got the hard copy. And the Japanese words are kind of, let's see, kind of sort of, it has a harder time on the these pink areas, but let's say like right there, hito to hito no tono kanke. And again, you can kind of see there, right, it is, again, you know, again, it is searchable. So this is searchable text. So that kind of makes it pretty useful, where you can search for English words or Japanese words throughout the book. That's, again, a benefit there if you've got the digital format. But again, some people prefer paperback. 6 1, half dozen the other. And I'll be honest though, a lot of people, they get the book mainly to get the Anki deck, and then they don't even look at the book because the Anki deck pretty much does most of the work, which explains why I won't share the Anki deck with you if you don't have modest proof of ownership of the book, if that makes sense. All right, the book has 14 chapters. Each chapter is a thematic, so news, appearance, image, so we go right there. And then the last 2 is kind of like frequently mistaken expressions, and there's 2 chapters of that. Kind of interesting, but we'll just keep it like with, let's say, the news. Each of the chapters are into 5 sections, roughly. You can kind of right there. So each of those are also thematic. So in this case, in the news, accidents in the news, trouble in the news, society, politics, economics. In that particular case. Then at the end of certain sections, are what I call, like, this says koremo oboe yo, but these are, I call the pink sections. And in this particular book, some of it's grammatical, so the prepositions and suppositions, suffixes, prefixes, and suffixes. Really, though, it's called affix here, so it's kind of there's an actual term for it. So there's one that it's affixed to the front of a word, or it's affixed to the end of a word, and it again changes its general meaning based on the particular suffix or prefix that's being used here. And there are some other thematics in there as well, katakana loan words, names of Japanese ministries, which pop up in the news a lot, the acronyms, proverbs, and sayings, which are kind of useful as well. So it's just by itself, it's a pretty useful book. Let's look at chapter 1 real quick. Actually, before we get into chapter 1, let's just explain. And again, most of this you already know. I get it. Most of this you already know, but I'm going to explain it anyway. All right, so the first is the number. So that's just the index, and most Anki decks utilize this index number, and it makes things a lot easier when it comes to if we ever have to do an update, like let's say chain sentences for a bulk update of mistakes that are being fixed. For example, utilizing a good index number makes the changes that much easier in Anki. Next part is a checkbox for if you memorize it. Again, pretty useless, but it's for those that actually use the book. The next part is the little gray, in a little gray box is the parts of speech, and these are the descriptions of the different parts of speech: noun, verb, adverb, pronouns. You know, daimeshi, meishi, doshi, fukushi, na keyoshi, ikeyoshi, setsuzokushi. Those are conjunctions, pretty useful. What is it? Rengo, the copulas, the Setsuji. There's what they don't have there that's also there is like jodoshi, assistant verbs, which are in there. There's also more parts of speech than just you're seeing here. But these are just bare bones. This is the bare bones minimum parts of speech. Finally, there's other symbols in there about, you know, if it's a plus sign, if you see in a word and it's a plus sign by it, that means it has a similar meaning. It's a related word. If it's an equal sign, it means it has the exact same meaning. Now, it doesn't mean it's used interchangeably. It just means the meaning's the same. Because Japanese being Japanese, you know, sometimes you don't want to just use a word because it has a meaning that you want. You know, there's only an appropriate word based on that situation, even though 2 or 3 words might have the same meaning. And then finally, if it's an arrow on both sides, if there's an arrow on both sides, this means it has the opposite meaning. Again, careful about that. Finally, there's a little pointer that just means it's a warning or an extra explanation about a particular word or phrase. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. If you've already done N4 and N3 and N2, and there's nothing new here. All right, so let's go look at chapter 1 real quick, or chapter 1, part 1. So again, it's Nikushin family. And again, you kind of see here, like I mentioned, it's not great because this uses furigana. It kind of messes with the text understanding so like for right here, well, it looks like this part's okay, but sometimes what will happen is the furigana will be included in what you copy. That might happen. Other time, in a couple of cases, it will just get the text wrong. Right? But it works good enough to where it's useful to, if you want to do copy pasting, you can do it. It's kind of a waste of time because, again, it's already all been typed up in a spreadsheet. If you own the book, I can send you the spreadsheet if you want. But, you know, generally, it's already going to be in an Anki deck. But if, let's say there's a mistake in the Anki deck, you can then do a copy paste of the sentence because it's easy to find and paste it into Anki. That's pretty much how simple. It's pretty straightforward there. There's really not too much to say. Now, if you... I'm not seeing it. Did I get rid of it? Huh. That's weird. Oh yeah, here we are. Now, in the book, in the textbook, as mentioned before, there is the vocabulary words are in red. The reason is if you use this red film and put over it, then the words disappear. So in addition, inside the sentences as well. But the idea was the idea being, if you look at the English word in the sentence in Japanese, but with the missing word, with the word you're looking for blanked out, can you fill in the sentence? That's kind of cool. That's called closed deletion. It is an effective way of reviewing. It's a very difficult way of reviewing, but it is available. And yeah, it's something to consider if you like using the physical. We can't do that with the Anki decks are not set up that way for closed deletion, but you can manually do that yourself. You know, it says highlight the word, use the button for closed deletion, let Anki do its thing. But you got to do the setup. I don't do that. Okay, all that said, let's bring this back. Okay, let me just show you the Anki deck. I'm just actually going to show you from the browser. All right, so this is pretty much the Anki deck that I share with people. So there's the N5, N4, N3, N2. These are, let's say, groomed would be a term. They're smoothed out. I fixed a lot of the errors. I fixed the formatting. I added some additional things like audio for the let's say, for example, like right here, if you do a preview, okay, like family, and then you can listen.
Family.
Family. That's the text-to-speech audio that I generated for all the non-sentence words. I don't think that's going to be now I didn't do that for the N1 decks. So if you go here, although it says right here there's audio, that's because I filled it in, but I didn't record any audio. I didn't generate any audio for it. So if you go to the preview, there's an audio here, but if you press it, nothing's going to play. I will say this, if you've got the Megaku plugin for this, utilize that, and what you can do is do a search for, learn how to do a bulk search for say X in this field. Tango has sentences X. They put a negative sign that inverts everything. So you then pick all the entries that where there are no sentences, if that makes sense. And then you can then bulk generate audio if you want to. I mean, it's not too difficult. Although the problem is it's going to get rid of the. Maybe in the future I do plan on going back through these decks and changing out the text-to-speech audio with the Megaku audio for pronunciation, because I think I like that audio better. Plus, a lot of the audio is by native speakers, which is going to be better than text-to-speech. But for the most part, let's just look at an entry. Again, you got the Tango sort index, so JLPT Tango N1 and then right here 00001. Because this index is the same for all these same format for all the books, it just makes updating that much easier. Again, finding if I have to update in bulk, this index number is very important. Same thing, I renamed all the audio files. Before, the audio file, if you looked at the stuff you downloaded from Mask Publishing's on their website, their naming convention sucks. They literally just named it a 4-digit number, and that was it. They didn't say what book. Yeah, that's it. They didn't say what book. And if there were two of them, they didn't designate like split. Like if there were two entries with the same sentence, they can merge them. So, for example, here, is it this one? No. Yeah, right there. So let me preview real quick.
遺産。父の遺産について。
Yeah.
遺産。
Yeah.
父の遺産について家族会議を開いた。遺産。遺産。いつか海外の世界遺産を巡りたい。
So the difference would be in the Tango audio from the website, those are all in the same audio file. So both sentences, or all 3 sentences, or 4 sentences. So that all got split up. That was a big deal there, splitting up the audio. So yeah, we got for furigana, you can use and don't be the person who says, hey, can someone make a new deck with this new way of showing the card? because you don't need a new deck to show a card. All you do is edit the card format.
遺産、
Edit the card layout.
いつか海外の世界遺産を巡りたい。
It's gonna piss me off, isn't it? Probably was a setting I can have where it wouldn't automatically play. But anyway, you can just change the layout of the card. It's not that difficult. The front template, the back
遺
template.
産、いつか海外、
Sorry, that's pissed me off. Again, it's not that difficult. Now, you might have to ask someone to do it for you, but you ask someone not to make a new deck. You ask someone, can they make a card styling for you? That's the trick. And then that way, the way you review cards, it's modified to your liking. Anyway, you see here we have the vocabulary with Furigana, the English translation, the audio for the vocabulary and the sentence. Now, Tango Ask Publishing, because of my request, they now offer the audio in their downloads as single vocabulary and sentences. They do that. So if you want to, and you want to go into the effort, it's possible. But you have to kind of rename the audio files. But if you're looking at it, you can probably notice is that, you can actually to where you can play just the audio of the vocabulary and then keep it separate from the audio of the sentence. That is more than doable. Here's the sentence, and then here's the sentence with Furigana, and then here's the translation of the sentence. What I didn't do now if you looked on Tango N2, let's just go a little forward here. There, let's go with this one here. What I had done was I went and did a vocabulary scan, or basically a scan of the vocabulary text, and then using the what was it? Something to Anki. I forgot the program that does it. But anyway, it analyzed the text. It gave vocabulary pitch, the parts of speech that you're seeing here. I also went through and added chapter and section titles. And then that would display on the card. So if you go to the preview of the card,
盛り上がる、
like right
盛
here.
り上がる。地震で道が盛り上がった。
All right. And you can see right here. So, right, it's got the additional notes for the pitch. It's got the parts of speech listed. I added additional notes if that was available on top of the translation. And then, of course, here was the titles. So it's very, very simple and straightforward. And the reason why I wanted to include the title and section, title of the chapter and the section, was that it added a bit more context for. It's kind of important for if you were just doing a vocabulary card like this one here. This added a little bit more context if it was just the vocabulary word, and like the ones that were just single vocabulary without example sentences. All right, I think. All right, this is turning into a very long video, but yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward. Okay, so like I said, you don't have to pay $1,100 for this Anki deck. I pay $1,100 for this Anki deck. But the idea was, in a way, the patrons of my Patreon paid for this Anki deck in a way. And through that, we want to make sure it's available for everyone. And again, same thing, same rules apply as always. Whether it's the N5, N4, N3, Tango N5, N4, N3, N2, or N1. All of them are right here. Okay? If you want to do it and just say, hey, here's a picture of your books, and here's a piece of paper with your username, and maybe also include the date, the current date, then yeah, send that to me on Discord and say, hey, can I have the Anki decks? Cool. Here's the links to the deck, so you can download it, start having fun. If you bought the digital book instead, very similar, just I'll mention, send me a particular page from the digital book. I'll probably do 2 or 3 pages throughout. And that just shows that you have access to the digital book. Cool. And then I'll send you the links to the Anki decks. That's all. So I'm hosting the Anki decks on my own, not really server, but yeah, I'm hosting the Anki decks. Send out the links. to those. And all I say is like, hey, don't share the links with anyone that doesn't have modest proof of ownership. All right. You don't have to say, all right. Most people say, no, they'll probably just send them my way. And that's generally probably what happens. Some people go through Otaku Dave because he's also he also has access to the same links I do, you know, on the Discord server because he's an administrator there now. Also, people go through Matt's server. I think the Refo. I don't know if he's still doing that because he did it as his own way of he took the N5 and N4 decks, kanjified them. I'm not a fan of the idea of kanjifying it because it kind of over kanjified it. But he shares those decks, and I think he does a few other things with it. But I think he's trying to back off of that, and for Matt, he might be making a deck specifically for his Refo crowd. Like, hey, this is decks. These are sentences that they curated. Probably has native pronunciation. I think, I don't know, native. He probably hired some natives to read the sentences and recorded it, created the audio. Perfectly fine, and he offers that to this more curated deck to people. That's what. But maybe, I don't know. You might still be able to get. I doubt you're going to get any of the N3, N2, or N1 decks from his servers. I think only thing when I was a moderator there, it was only the N5 and the N4, and that kind of caused some problems because some people from his Discord server were messaging me. I didn't realize they were like coming from the Matt versus Japan crowd, so I sent them the normal deck, or the deck that's based heavily on the book, but they wanted the one that's conjified, so I sent them the file and then said, look, you use this text file to update the N5 or N4 decks and basically conjify them. Yeah, that was how that was set up. I think that's about it. I want to apologize mainly. Let me end this off by apologizing to my patrons. I apologize for not doing what a lot of people on Patreon do, which is offer thanks and then actually have your names of the patrons, flash on the screen at the end of each video. I'm very lazy when it comes to video production. It's pretty much I do a live stream, and once the recording done, I just do very little with the video after that. I don't want to do anything with the video after that, to be honest. But again, you can see that there's the people who are active supporters. I look through the numbers. Right now it's 95 patrons are active, and they're going from $1 to $10. I think a couple people who are at $20, but for the most part, again, thank you for the support. But there are also those that showed their support that aren't active anymore, but they did show the support. And I looked at the numbers. There's quite a few people have given in total like 200 or 300, maybe even more. I don't want to go into the exact numbers there, but again, and those, I would call those guys legacy supporters, in that if I created something, they should have access to it, in my opinion, because I don't think Patreon allows me a way to tag them as legacy, but like not just those that do a monthly donation, but those that like then surpass a certain amount, a certain milestone of support in total, because they might be doing it month by month for years, and again, there should be a way to recognize their efforts as well. But again, I'm lazy. I apologize. Which is kind of weird because I'm being supported to help the Japanese community, language learning community. But I'm kind of weird in my ways. So I might spend a lot of time helping out on the subreddit, Learn Japanese subreddit, being a moderator there. Help spend time on the Discord, doing stuff there. Sometimes I'll even help out on some of the other big Discord channels. I did that a couple of times. Like I hope kind of stepped in to help with an event. Like I did that about a week or two ago. Maybe I should actually link that video on the Patreon as well. What else am I thinking? But yeah, I want to say again, thanks. I mean, I do appreciate that. I honestly do appreciate it. And part of me is like always worrying, like I should do more, but then it's like that worry, that stress of wanting to do something, but then also the procrastination that I'm suffer from. then also starts making me not want to, not doing it, even though I know I should do it. So I'm worrying about something that I'm, until then, of course, I actually sit down and do it. Then all of a sudden, oh, it wasn't that difficult at all. But I will say, it's always in the back of my mind. I'm always thinking like, I've got a plan. There is a plan, and it's always like in the back of my mind, trying to develop it. So I visualize the plan. So when I actually get down to the nuts and bolts and actually do it, it actually goes pretty smoothly. Unfortunately, that means that I'm like, putting on even more gray hair, just trying to worry about all the throughout the thought process of, what to do or how to do it. If I ever get around to doing it at all. That's if I do it at all. But again, thanks to the patrons. And thanks actually to everyone who tries to help in the Japanese community. Because, I'm trying to say this is, through my support, I support, a few of the other patrons. So it's really the patrons that support me help support those other patrons. It's a way to look at it as well. So that's why I don't mind subscribing to other patrons now and again. Show some support for a short time, even though I might cut it off. But I think that's good to do. You can kind of see why I don't do this as a full screen. This is look really bad if you see my whole face on the screen talking like this. And I'm losing my train of thought. But again, I still plan on keeping this up. I've got some ideas on improving the Patreon, and I actually do feel like there are a few Patreon only videos series that I want to start making. Not at the moment. I still want to catch up with the Let's Reads and have that kind of going smoothly. Then I might look into making some Patreon only videos. And again, that's going to be the more basic stuff. I'll just tell you right now. My idea here is kind of like with this video book series. Very few people are going to do the N1 compared to those that are going to do the N5. Hundreds are going to do the N5. A few dozen at most are going to do the N1 of the groups that are asking for the decks. And I need to start redoing all these video series that I've already done when I was doing it on Memrise. So I need to go back and now do it as as I'm doing it as a YouTube /Anki /Let's Learn Japanese Discord series, and actually concentrate as on the Patreon itself. And so yeah, I'll say it. I'm going to do the Let's Learn Kanji. I'm sorry, we're going to do like a 12 series Let's Learn Hiragana Katakana. I'm going to do that. I'm going to start doing a series on Let's Learn Kanji, using the order and organization that includes both the kanji but also the common words that utilize that kanji. And it's going to be in tiered structures that make sense, so that the vocabulary you learn is going to be just as useful as a kanji. It's going to be at the same tier. It's not going to be you're going to learn this word because you learned this kanji. If this kanji is common but the word wasn't, well, you're not going to learn that kanji if that's even though the kanji technically would have been in a higher tier. Basically, I'm going to call it what's called tethered ordering. Tiered tethered ordering is a way to do. So it's in tiers based on frequency, but it's tethered based on whether the frequency, the tier of the kanji or the tier of the vocabulary that's using that kanji. All right, and yeah, I want to make a series on those, and got plenty of. I'm going to follow the same format as I did when I originally made these videos. So the Let's Learn Hiragana Katakana is going to be using the Hazek book, and then just going exactly like I did those videos prior. It's going to be, the audio is going to be better. It's going to be a lot more consistent, and I'm going to utilize utilize sort of the techniques that I learned doing these live streams anyway. But it's still going to be it's going to be a live stream format, but this is going to be video specifically for that, and I'll feel better about it because again, those videos are really old. The kanji ones, again, going to be a lot better because it's going to be tier formatted to make it more user friendly, and I think people are going to appreciate it. But it's going to be for the Patreon. These are going to be Patreon videos. I might do a few others with going through the Tango books like I did before. I made the videos. I should go and private, not the first video, but the second two videos. Like, I don't think you need the whole videos of the whole book on YouTube. Although, again, that kind of bit me in the ass by doing that also, because some guy, I'll say asshole, try to use that and then scan those videos. I guess what he did something, but he supposedly scanned the videos and was able to grab the text from the Anki screens that I was flashing on screen, and then made an Anki text that way, just based on the videos I had up. So it was stupidity on my part, but oh well, life goes on. Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube when in that situation. All right, this is 45 minutes. I think I've talked enough. All right, so in summary, I did talk about what led to the clickbait title. Although again, it's not clickbait; it is true, but it reads like clickbait. So I talked about the history of what led to the Patreon and supporting projects and paying of people for their efforts and helping create product that can then be given out to the Japanese learning community. All right, talked about that. Then I talked about the N1 book itself, and of course, don't forget the N2 book as well. Kind of falls under that because again, technically a review, although I didn't do the two books. I've heard good things. So there are people who have done the N2 and N1 books on my Discord. And yeah, they've that's not the only thing they do, but it has helped them in their immersion because again, that's this vocabulary words that once they've learned it, it's going to be they're going to start noticing it all over the place. So that's the benefit there. Yeah, but don't rush out and get it. I think if you don't use these, if you just use sentence mining, you'll be just as fine. But yeah, I talked about that, and then I ended with a thanks to the people of the patrons, to the patrons of the Patreon. So thank you all again so let me say thanks again. This has been Nuke Marine. This has been paying $1,100 for an Anki deck, or Let's Learn Japanese review ofはじめての日本語能力試験N1 Tango N1 3,000 essential vocabulary for JLPT N1. Hopefully I'll remember to get all the appropriate links down in the description. If not, oh well, who gives a fuck. And yeah, thank you all very much, and I'll see you next time.